Okay, here's my greatest pitch that I can ever do for a remodel, especially if it's large. It's just like having a baby. Demo starts is the time you figure out you're pregnant. You're so excited this project's underway and going. Then as you start working through your first trimester, you're getting a little bit more uncomfortable with everybody showing up at 7 o'clock in the morning, knocking on your door and making it loud and messy and all that. Second trimester, you're really getting grumpy about all this stuff now, and you want these people to leave. You want it to be done. You can see the finish line, but you're not there. Then when we wrap the whole project up, the baby comes out and the house is beautiful, and you forget all that misery that you had the 6 months before that.
So welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have Tim Nelson on. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it.
So Tim is the president of Symmetry Builders Corp. And Tim and I go way back. We actually met at the gym, funnily enough, and we've been friends for quite a while. And our wives, and both he and I and our wives have been out to dinner and we've collaborated. And of course, business is always number one topic when we meet, but Tim has also given me many pointers too. So I appreciate that.
Yes, very welcome. Appreciate that friendship
So
as well.
So what's unique, most builders, I'd say most people in general, when they're, networking, they have a hard time going up to people, going up to stranger. I think most of us have been in a networking event and you're kind of out of place. If you don't know anyone, it's easy to be a wallflower in some of those events. Whereas like the gym's kind of a good area where I just see you. You have so many friends. Every time I'm there, everyone knows Tim. They say hi to you. They know your wife, Kim. You guys are like super friendly. So how do you get out of your shell? What has led to that success just as the gym? And I'm sure that's crossover into business too.
Yeah, it's so I'm a third generation contractor. And I started very young, probably about 10, 12 years old in the summertime, working for my grandfather and working for my dad. And they were both very engaging as well. And so I was something that I just followed in their footsteps and was very comfortable talking to anybody. And the one of the nice things is it's a numbers game in this business too. The more of the people you talk to, you might not be talking to the right person, but that person may refer to somebody else that, hey, listen, I was talking to this contractor the other day who really sounded like he knew what he was doing and wanted to get some work done, and it moves that way. So in the gym, I'm considered kind of a fixture because I'm there 7 days a week, So everybody kind of knows me, and I enjoy complimenting people on the progress that I see the work they've done. It's very difficult to be disciplined in that area for a long time, but that does help a lot, and it does, and it just keeps me moving forward with things. So I enjoy finding feedback, and just as exactly how we met when I asked you about your shirt, I thought you were a trade contractor I used in the past. You ended up having this multi-million-dollar company, and that was fantastic. So, yeah, that's just luck of the draw. I approached you, I asked what happened, and there it goes. And so now we have a great friendship, and I'm thankful for that. So I enjoy talking to people anytime I can.
Well, it's interesting. I know that from your side, how has that bled over into just, as you look at now, have you ever had business outside the gym? Have you ever met trade partners? How has that just benefited you just on a personal level?
Yeah, so I've had referrals from people at the gym that I have gotten some jobs for. There's another contractor there that I've become friendly with, and his father-in-law is also at the gym, same person, same family. And so we've been doing a little bit of network back and forth, but nothing great. Just kind of we were griping about some of our trades that we needed some help with, and so we shared some ideas and contacts with that, and that's been successful so far. So it is good. The networking with other contractors you really inspired me to do, because I really did like to socialize in that group, because they all seem to complain about other contractors, and I didn't like that, so it wasn't enjoyable for me. But after meeting you and then meeting these other people, those guys were all really good guys, and I've had a great experience since then.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny how kind of your eyes are open. I think I was a little blinded too when I first started my company. I remember reaching out to some local builders and a lot of cold shoulders out there, a lot of people, peers not wanting to help or give advice or share subs. And of course, you're not going to go up to someone and say, give me your whole bid list. I had JD Dwyer from Sticks and Bricks, and, we had talked about that on the episode a while back, but essentially even just a collaboration, like, hey, I need a stucco guy, Tim, or I need a concrete guy, maybe one here or there, and we all have good trades that we can't keep totally busy ourselves. So sometimes we want them to work for good GCs as well, who we know will take good care of them. And so it's funny how my eyes have been open too, just the collaboration, and that's part of the reason I do the podcast. And, in that crossover to business now, as you look at remodeling and your business, when you look at goals of the gym and, you and I both have them, and that's why we're there and trying to stay active. And so in that way we could be alert, right, in our day to day with our business. How do you kind of control the goals or get down to the goals and objectives of your clients?
Well, that's a great question. And the there's typically about 3 meetings before we get started. And the initial one is just the walkthrough with the client to see exactly what they want to do, if it's going to be feasible, what their timeline is. Because a lot of times we get people that really want to jam in a bunch of stuff over summer or in the fall, right before Christmas and the holidays. That's a very volatile time to go. But once we have our initial visit, and we'll present a potential budget for them for what they want to do, then we'll talk about timelines and try to get all that established before we start the project. And this is also includes if they're wanting to design their own project or if they have a designer. If they don't, we certainly will refer a handful of them. We like to have a designer on place. And then it's critical that we have all the selections made prior to starting this project. Otherwise, that delay turns into a nightmare for the homeowner that's going to be living through this if they're going to be in that home. So, critical component for anybody listening: all selections need to be made before you start a project.
So I want to grab you there because the funny thing is I've been pretty big on this, to have selections done. When you're building a custom home, I would say even the homes that we build, it I don't want to say it's more feasible, but it is feasible because, typically our pre-construction timeline is a year, year and a half, possibly 2 years on some of these builds. So there's quite a timeline, where we can get a lot accomplished. We can make a lot of decisions. So we're very prepared when we go into construction. The pushback I often get are, a lot of builders and specifically remodelers are like, you can't do it. You're moving so fast. How have you been able to take this hard stance, Tim, to say, and I'm sure, at the backbone of this, it becomes from mistakes that have been made and frustrations with clients. But how have you been able to say, hey, we're not starting your demo. We're not starting the project until selections are made?
Well, it's actually once you get a good reputation and backlog, you can have the ability to say no to some of these people. So, and I cannot say for 100% that I still start a project maybe if all the selections aren't done. If I enjoy the client, I trust the client, I'll give it some latitude there. But it has been so much more successful for us and the client if we have the selections made and we can just go through it. And so actually a project I can recommend is one that you referred to me for down in Seville, the Baker residence. This was a whole house remodel that we need to do there, 3,400 square feet, touched every room. And they needed to move out. And I told them, I said, I need 4 months. And so they were in 4 months and a week. And we just have a couple backsplashes and stuff to do to take care of that. But the reason that they had to come back in is they were fostering a child, and you have to have these criteria with the fostering people as to where this child is living at the time. And so that's why they had to come back in to the house before it was 100% complete. So you run into some areas about that, but if anytime we can keep the client out, because, and you'll appreciate this part too, a final clean, a final punch list and a final clean is so important at the end of the job for the client to walk into. And if they want to walk in when you're 80, 90% done and have to move back in, boy, that never gets done. And it's frustrating to us because it's not our top shelf level that we want to present them when they come back home.
I think that's an interesting point because many of us have dealt. The reality is budgets can be tight. Pricing is, it's not cheap right now to build a home and do a remodel. And for us, most of our stuff is cost plus, and so we kind of itemize each item of the bid. And a mistake I made just being open many years ago is we had a client and we were trying to cater to him, and budget, was tight. And this is during COVID. So, pricing's changing and became pretty challenging. And so one of the items that we always have is our final clean, because we bring in professional cleaners and detail the home. And it's typically, as you mentioned, around that final push when we're doing final punch and we're doing our AFT team walk and so forth. Bottom line is the client's like, hey, we're going to clean ourselves. We're going to save the money, do a little sweat equity, and the issue is it's never clean to the same detail that our cleaners would come in and do it. And it was just really hard as we're trying to punch the house to go through and really turn over what we would call an AFT quality home, right? And it became a really challenging aspect. And so I think it's really important that all of us have our, SOP, our operating procedures for a reason. And we push down, just as you do, Tim, to say, hey, I need to do your final clean. And more importantly, we need to have decisions made before we break ground. And how is that when you're looking with a client, and you mentioned the designer, which I think we align there. And to be honest, I haven't met a ton of remodelers that are super pro designer, right? And it's not that they have anything against them. It's just they're fast moving. A lot of builders will try to make those decisions. Where has that realization come where you see the value of design and why you're so big on incorporating them early on?
Anytime that a designer brings me onto a project, 90% of the time I get the project, which is great because she presents us as a team, which is fantastic. So I have a handful of these designers that'll do that, and it's great. And for me, just being the applicator, as I say, of what they're doing, I really enjoy having a 3-ring binder, every room broken down, rough end details, finished details, product selections, locations to purchase the product, and have all that available, that anytime any of my team shows up to the job, that binder's on site and is available. They can just go through that and figure out what they need. Now, some of that is moving along in technology wise with Builder Trend and house environments and stuff like that you can do a Google Drive. We still prefer the hard paper on the desk at their job site to be able to do that. And the designer is a nice buffer between myself and the homeowner, because we really just want to be getting in there, getting after it, getting it done. Don't need a lot of engagement. And then if we have questions, we have somebody we can go after who could sort that out and get it done for us while we continue to work, rather than chasing the client around for an answer.
It's incredible, as you mentioned that. When you speak about buffer, I think, as you look at the full context of design, and essentially you spoke to this, the designers you're working with, they're giving you CAD details, they're giving you design books. And so these are physical, tangible items that you can have, electronically in Builder Trend, you can have them in the field. And so you actually have a roadmap, you have plans to build from. And the buffer is interesting because I've always, from my perspective, I look at, just having that other team player that's going to be coordinating so many different details of the home, that now you and I can focus on building, right? Building can be complicated enough with a new build is complicated enough. When we're looking at, how we weatherproof the house, right? And how the vapor barrier, underneath the foundation and all the different details we're building with. Well, when you're doing a remodel, even more so complicated, you have to be there, Tim. One thing that's unique about remodels is you can't just manage it from afar. You have to be there daily, going through the details. When you're demoing and you're opening things up, you're finding surprises, all these little Easter eggs throughout the house, right?
Yes.
I can't imagine trying to do a remodel, be there and have the attention to detail from a construction standpoint and still have to figure out selections.
Correct. Yeah, it is. We just had one up in McCormick Ranch, Scottsdale, doing a bathroom, and we started demoing out the floor and found a sunken shower underneath the tub area that was originally there. So we had to go down another 3 feet and take all that product out. So there are plenty of surprises, and that's the challenge of a remodel, is you never know what's exactly behind the walls or how it was originally constructed the first time and what you're going to be get up to. And a lot of other little things that happen in there is when the framing's done and you have soft fit areas around kitchens and bathrooms and stuff. A lot of the trades will cheat and not go all the way to the exterior wall and bring the plumbing down or the electrical down. They'll all snake it through the soffit. So you got to reroute a whole bunch of that stuff, and you can't do that when you're there bidding the process. So uh, we give ourselves quite a bit of latitude with some allowances for what something's going to be. We take a lot of pictures if the homeowners are not on site, any of that kind of product. We'll take pictures of that, send it to the designer or in a group text, and let everybody know what's going on and what we're going to have to do with that type of work.
I was just going to ask, like, when you find surprises like that, you're opening a wall and you assume that you plumbing, mechanical, whatever, maybe, electrical may be in the wall, but they're running through a soffit now. How are you documenting that immediately to say, hey, this is essentially a plan bust or a scope bust?
Well, it's so great now that we have a computer that fits in our pocket, and we call it a phone, and you can take just about everything. You can do great video, you can do great pictures with it, and then just immediately send that off within the minutes that you discovered all this process, and it gets people to digest it a little bit. And I usually just tell them, this is what we discovered. I'm going to get you a workup by the end of the day. We'll talk this evening about how we're going to approach it, and we'll settle that evening, and we'll get back at it the next day. Rarely do we have any pushback on that stuff. I really let everybody know there's going to be a few surprises behind these walls that when we open them up.
That's amazing. As you look at the customer, progress, throughout the build and setting those expectations, what are some of the biggest anxiety that clients have before starting a remodel?
Okay, here's my greatest pitch that I can ever do for a remodel, especially if it's large and you've never been a remodel, but the wife has birthed children. Here's my relationship with that. It's just like having a baby. Once we start the project, demo starts is the time you figure out you're pregnant. You're so excited this project's underway and going. Then as you start working through your first trimester, you're getting a little bit more uncomfortable with everybody showing up at 7 o'clock in the morning, knocking on your door and working and making it loud and messy and all that. Second trimester, you're really getting grumpy about all this stuff now, and you want these people to leave. You want it to be done. You could see the finish line, but you're not there. Then when we wrap the whole project up, the baby comes out and the house is beautiful, and you forget all that misery that you had the 6 months before that.
Now, what happens if that construction process goes longer though, and they stay pregnant longer? I'm sure probably not as happy at the end, right?
They're probably not as happy as at the end, but I am a proponent of expressing a later deadline than what I expect it to be. And that cost me a lot of jobs. I'm certain of that, because there are many contractors that will say, I can get this done in 3 months. And I'm telling them it's 6 or 7. So I try to be really honest on timelines. And especially even on the small projects like a master bathroom or something like that, you just can't have 3 trades in there at a day. So that really stretches out. That's going to be a 3-month minimum project in a master bathroom remodel, at least. So as I said, it's cost me jobs, being honest with that, but it sure gives me peace of mind than trying to keep telling them 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. I don't ever want to do that.
Yeah, I realized that honesty up front. I mean, painting a realistic picture of the build time, there's no doubt there's going to be some clients that may not like that answer, go to someone else who's going to give them a better timeline, better budget, at least principally, like in the beginning. And then, by the end, they come back. And I was just speaking with an architect that having that conversation with a client that we bid out many years ago. And the client ended up going in a different direction, and sure enough came back and said, yep, it was the budget and timeline was right. And we went the other way and then paid for it in many other ways along the process. And so it is tough. Do you ever find it challenging to be that upfront with the client, knowing that, hey, it may cost you the project in the beginning?
Yeah. I'll be soured on it for a few days if that's the case. I had a large one up in Scottsdale over around 112th and Shea, and it was a whole house remodel, just under $1 million to do, and this was just pre-COVID, very pre-COVID, and I gave him a 9-month timeline on this project, and he says, well, this other contractor said he can do it in 6, and I said, well, nine's going to be my number. And he said, he called me back in a day. So listen, I'm going to go with this guy. He said that he'd get it done in 6, otherwise he'll pay a penalty if he's not done in the 6 months. And then COVID hit, which probably saved that contractor's behind because everything got stalled out there. And I mean, I think that job went on for 14, 16 months, but if he had a decent contract, he was saved by a natural disaster, if you want to call it, or whatever you want to do there. But that was one that was kind of stuck in my craw because I knew I was right on that, and it was a good number on that job, and it was a job that I really wanted to do. It was a very nice home.
So when you're setting that expectation with the client, how do you gauge work hour constraints? Because again, when you're doing a remodel, if they're living in the home, you're going to be limited on access times. You mentioned the master bath example where, it's hard to stage a ton of trades in a small confined area. So how do you define and set those expectations clearly based on the scope and, the constraints you have with all the remodels that you do?
So we do a 7:30 to 3:30 schedule when people are living in the home. Otherwise, if they're not occupying, then we'll go to whatever the HOA allows us for the timeline to be in there. We rarely work the weekends. I try to let them have peace if they're going to be home with that. And they, and then it's the living arrangement. So that's the other thing that we have to discover because I will seal off any rooms that are not going to have any activity, so none of this dust gets through it. Because no matter how well you protect, dust finds its way everywhere. So that's a big challenge for us when people are living there. We'll do temporary plastic walls to seal off the workspace area. We'll tape all bedroom doors shut that will not need anything. And we do a lot of furniture manipulation by putting them into some of those rooms, or we'll do a whole pack out and have a company in, take the product out, put it into an air conditioned storage facility, and have that sit there until it's time to come back. Um, so luckily, it's the ones that I've recently been working with. They actually work at home, but they get up pretty early. They're up usually about 5:30, 6 o'clock, so that's never a problem. And they go late, but it is it is an area that we got to seal off the house there because now they're having their environment impacted with all the noise. So we try to do some deadening sound barrier on a temp wall and try to keep it quiet. It's almost putting like acoustic panels in a theater type of deal, but it does help out. And and some people just want to be at the home.
So are you facilitating? Because I know that's a big aspect is, they're essentially having to move out, move furniture out. Are you working with them as a budget line with a third party company to get all that
Yeah,
taken care
so
of?
I do have a third party company that I use, and then I will also offer them if they want to handle that. That is fine because it's if I'm going to handle all that, then I'm going to have a fee for doing that. And so I just give that back to them. Listen, you can call these same people and do everything you want here and not have to pay the money for me. And it's the same thing. And we can just take care of it that way. And I would probably say 20% will say, yes, they'd like to take that on. But most of the time, they just want to hand it all over to me and just get it done so they don't drop any deadlines.
Well, you mentioned the safeguards you're going through just to protect the home from, dust and debris and noise. And I mean, to the extent that you can, right? How do you deal with clients to make them feel comfortable about people in your house? Because I know specifically with remodelers, I'm sure you've had clients say, Tim, do you background check everyone that's in my house? How are you vetting your base? How are you making the clients feel comfortable with those that are going to be coming into an existing property?
Yes. It is tough sometimes with that. You just never know when some of the trades, others employees have a certain look or demeanor or something like that. So it's very important to me in that initial meeting that I can make the wife comfortable with going on. And the best aspect for me is now that my boys are older, they both work for me. So it's three family members that are on the job for sure every day. And then I have a couple other superintendents and another employee that does miscellaneous product for us. But the family is a big deal. And I always bring Kim to every meeting as well too. So um, they know that this is my wife and she's in the business and she's handling everything on the backside. You'll be doing a lot of talking with her as you will with me. So that eases it down quite a bit for them. They like the family nucleus, which I think is a great deal. And then of course with my 3 generations of history, and now it's passing on down to them. It's rejuvenated me to kind of get back into building the business again, so I can just slide it down to the boys and they can keep going, which is great.
That's amazing. And so I can only imagine the comfortability saying, if you're standing in front of them, Tim, that, hey, I have my 2 sons that are essentially working in the operation. One of us 3 will be in the build. And so there's some supervision and we're looking over the project where most contractors fail by not having adequate supervision that are maintaining, progress. They're checking quality. They're checking, that everything's done correctly. How is that giving you upper hand just from the client's feeling, okay, I could trust Tim in his operation?
Yeah, this is a tough little spot that we have discussions with the homeowners in the budget process is cost for supervision. So we have a handful of projects that are going on right now that are just a couple kitchens, couple master bathrooms, and another house with 2 bathrooms that are going on. So those areas do not need a lot of time. We'll come in and we'll do the full demo ourselves. We'll do the frame back ourselves. And then our trades come in, the plumbing, the electrical, the tile setters, drywall guys, and all that. So we will always have an individual there when a trade comes on site, because I don't know who's going to come from the company, whether it's Tom, Jim, Joey, or whoever. And I have no idea if he knows where he's going, what he's going to do, or knock on the doors, or what time he's going to show up. So we make sure 7:30 start time. I'll have a super on site, and they just basically babysit there. And it does cost the homeowner hourly wage there, but it sure saves headaches, troubles, mistakes, messes for sure. Let me just jump into the transition into the mess thing there. So
Yeah.
if you do not give a specific location for a concrete, a drywall guy, or a painter to clean out, you're going to have coloration all over that yard in different areas. I know you're aware, right? Concrete
Yep.
there, drywall, mud, paint poured in the gravel out off the side of the yard. So that's a hard no on our jobs. We'll set up either the kiddie pools you can get from Walmart or something like that, or we just build an area, tarp it all so that it doesn't leak through into the ground, and we'll clean all that stuff out. And we have our own dump trailer, so we hit all of our jobs every week, pull all that stuff out, and that's a big saver too.
I think the biggest feedback I've ever received, especially when we did a lot of remodels early on, um, it is specifically what you're speaking about is just the extra care, going the extra step. You mentioned, how you're going to protect from dust, but more importantly, it's the washout areas. You see the painter will go wash his paintbrush, out in, here in Arizona, we have a lot of rocks just to paint that picture. You have a lot of gravel outside. And so it does discolor it. Drywall mud from the, drywallers, you have the concrete. And so, going that extra step makes an impact. It's really hard to sell that value. So how are you creating that value to the client to show, hey, we're different, between your wife, Kim, you, your kids, they're working the business, just the whole operation, the extra value, that extra step of care that you're taking.
Well, it's part of our pitch when we initially meet them, and then as we progress through the process, and we're making another site visit to do whatever, then we'll explain where it's actually going to go, because I can pick out a location pretty easily when I'm on site. So we tell them we're going to build this here, and then we'll have this, uh, and then also, we always bring out a porta potty. We don't want to stay in the house and use any other product there, so we'll have a spot for that. Keep all the boys out of the house, and then that'll be typically next to the cleanup area as well too. And once you kind of lay that out and they can envision what's going on, I have pictures of other job sites that I've done too, and I could just flip through it and I say, listen, here's exactly what I'm trying to explain to you right here. And they'll get an idea of that. And then post that, we'll give referrals, and we'll give referrals that are specific to that kind of project that we're going on, price point, um, location, and all that kind of stuff. And that usually locks us in.
How do you, internally, because you have Kim involved, you have, your son's involved, as you mentioned, how have you, as you've grown, diversified that job role, that understanding of who's responsible for what aspect of the build and project?
Well, I haven't mastered that. My my ability to dictate, I'm still working on that because I am a learner that watching my dad work as hard as he did. I just wanted to work harder. And so I expect anybody that's watching me thinks they should outperform me, which isn't always the truth. You gotta prod some people and give them a little bit more instruction and training, and that's difficult for me. But I'm really working on it, trying to get better at that because my body is not willing to do all the things I could do through my 20s and 30s and 40s. So um, I am trying to allow a longer leash on my boys to see how they perform when all that's going. And so far it's been going really well. We did have a porch extension with some T&G that had some difficult miters and cuts and stuff like that, and we got about a third into it, and I didn't like it, and so we had to redo it, and that was a good learning curve for both of us. It just happens, and I told the homeowners at the time that was going to happen. I said, listen, I'm going to cut my boys loose on this a little bit and see how well they do, and he was a friend of mine, so he was fine with it, and he did, and we had some good laughs, but the job turned out great, and they love it, and it's fun. So um, I'm still practicing that practice.
Well, I would say, in fairness to you, Tim, I mean, the reality is we have to start somewhere. I know early in my career I made a ton of mistakes. I mean, I still do. I'm sure you're the same. And so you have to create an environment where your team and people, there's a culture there where they can understand that they at some point they have to leave the nest and they have to figure it out. But you also have to have a groundwork and a game plan for when mistakes happen and protocol and you know when things come up. And of course, as you mentioned, you want to make sure the client's on board too to understand where they're at, and so then that way they're not concerned and just so they know at the core of it, hey, you're managing it, Tim, you're going to take care of it so that they don't feel that they have to micromanage you or your company.
Right. And so back to designers on this topic too, is I've had some designers that we had some detailed product and some tile that we were working on and whatnot, and you will have some tiles that'll have some flaws in them, just a slight discoloration. Well, your tile guy is going 90 miles an hour to get the job done, and he's throwing it all up, but it may be like right in the middle of the backsplash over your cooktop, you have this tile that's got this little black nick in it, or a mark or imperfection. And so I've had a couple of designers call me and say, Tim, I really don't like that tile that has that mark in it. It's right in there. Why would they put that in there? And I said, well, first of all, it's all placed on a sheet that's a 12 by 12 mesh tile, and then it goes up, and they're not really paying attention to that. But I'll cut it right out. We can take care of that, no problem. And they almost take a step backwards, like they were ready for a fight. Like I was going to say no, and I have no reason to say no. I mean, anything that we do can always be reversed, and I do not get wound up about changes like that or an imperfection on this piece of deal or anything like that. So I think that's what has kept my relationship with my designers really well is that I don't push back. If you don't like it, then I'm changing it. It has no bearing on me. I'll just take that out, replace a new place, and let's just move on and finish the project.
Yeah, that's a great stance to have with your clients. And you mentioned early on too, you said there's essentially 3 steps before you kind of get to that final moment. One thing that's tough as a remodel contractor is you're getting leads all the time. And how are you vetting them? Because you could be driving all over town, and anyone that's been to Phoenix understands your footprint. I mean, from the East Valley to Cave Creek and everything in between, this could be an hour, hour and a half just one way in greater Metro Phoenix. So how are you vetting that initial call to make sure, hey, this client may actually be in line with my scope. I think there may be a potential project here as we collaborate together. And so, yeah, I'm going to take the second meeting and meet in person. How do you get through that first call?
So um, we have designers in separate areas of the city. So I have one that is up in Desert Mountain area, which is a good hour drive that we go up there, and it's a nice budget type job. Another one is Cave Creek. She's a Southwest designer, and a lot of that happens there, so we go there. now we're trying to make a push into the East Valley down here where we live. And what we have gone after is the areas in the 15 to 20-year-old home ranges that just need to be updated. So everything that we were doing, throwing travertine in 2004 and 2005 and 2006, now we're just tearing all that out, which is great. And so um, when we look at the project, we are looking for uh, a, let's see, I would like to say at least a 3 to 4 month project. So that could be a couple bathrooms in the kitchen or a kitchen or what have you like that. And then we are looking at the value of the residents and what it would take. Let's stop that for a second there, Brad.
No, no, you're good. So Tim, let me ask you this. So when they're calling you and they're saying, okay, Tim, I want to do a kitchen, I want to do a bathroom, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Essentially, you're going to ask them, hey, what's your address at some point so that you can do some research and say, is that just part of your sales pitch to say, let me do an analysis because I have my realtor license. I can look up comps. I can look up where homes are selling. So you're actually providing this value to look into and do a little research for them.
Correct. Yeah, I would exactly do what you said there. I would get the information from them from the call, get an address, and I let them know that I carry a real estate license and I can look it up online on the MLS. So I'll pull up their property. I'll review the rooms that we have talked about remodeling. Then I will get on a phone call with them and ask them, okay, now what do you want to do with those? And we'll start talking about it. And a lot of it will come down to like load bearing walls or anything like that, what can be moved and what cannot be moved. And we'll have a short conversation there. And then if I feel comfortable with them so far, I'll set a date and we'll go come out and walk the site and take a look. And then I can get in your attic and take a look if you have any bearing walls or anything like that. And we could move forward. And when we do get up there, I have that same question and criteria: is there going to be a designer involved? Do you have plans? What's your timeline for the project? Do you have a hard start? Do you need a hard finish? Are kids graduating at the end of the year and need a summer party before we start on this? Or, how are the holidays going to affect you if it's going to be around that time? Lots of questions for that stuff.
I think that's fascinating because I've spoken to a lot of remodelers. I don't think I've ever met one, Tim, that's doing this amount of research, to provide that value to the client. Most of them are like, hey, I got a great job lead. It's a great project. Here's your budget. Let's go do it and let's go knock this out. Right. It's part of business because there is the chance that, your people would possibly not do the remodel by thinking they're going to overbuild. By providing this value, how does that change your closure rate with the client?
Good. I mean, I would say we're at least 75 to 80%. And the only thing that really knocks me out of it is I may be a little bit higher priced because this is the same as my timeline. I would rather come down on the budget than keep asking for more money. The same with the timeline of the job. I would rather extend that timeline out and not have to keep telling you that I need more money and I need more time to do this. So that's those are the areas that cost me some jobs, I would say. And just also the only other thing that really cost me is it just overlap with another job and if I just can't take it on.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really important because essentially you're controlling your backlog. You understand the work in progress, and you don't want to overcommit yourself where you're not going to be able to perform for the client.
Correct.
So going back to the valuation, do you ever have clients? Because I'm sure as you're going through this, there are always scenarios based on the scope that they want to do that they are going to overbuild. It's just the reality of the amount of money and complication of the remodel where you're presenting this information. How many of them look at you and say, no, Tim, I want to be in this neighborhood. I want my kids in the school district. I don't want to move. I may be overbuilding, but hey, I want what I want and I'm going to move forward.
I've had two of those in the last year. Very funny you say that. The one was down in South Gilbert, and his remodel was more than he paid for his house. But he said, "I love my neighbors, and this place is great." And yeah, this was a project that had a 2-story home, but the living room was full height to the second floor, and it's just one of those wasted holiday only kind of living rooms, right? Everybody else stayed in the deal. So we put in
Yep.
up in that area. Got them 630 square feet of space upstairs. Completely changed the dynamics of that house, and it was fantastic. They had 4 young kids, and it was just their play area up there. That was great. And then another one was right over here off of Gilbert and Ray Road and Cooper. Same deal. Now they were empty nesters, basement home. I think they paid 275 for the home, and the remodel was 220. And they just touched everything again so that the kids can come back. They can have bedrooms downstairs, bathrooms, all for when they come visit back to mom and dad. And those were great jobs, fantastic. And both of those people actually lived through the projects too with us, and it was great. They do enjoy that. So if it's your forever home, spend all the money you want on it. Enjoy it.
So how do you deal with needs versus wants?
Yeah, that's there's a lot of novelty items. Showers are pretty popular for this. They want body sprays, rain cans, all this other kind of stuff. And when you come back and see those people in 4 or 5 months, they rarely use them, if ever they use those things again. So I kind of debunk some of that stuff. If you really need it and want it, if you have an injury or something like that, then I can understand using some of that stuff. But otherwise, you're spending a lot of stuff. And one of the uh, in addition to the needs and wants, another aspect that I push on is cheap is the most expensive. So if you're going to do something, don't always try to go cheap, because it's never going to last. It's not going to work. Spend the money. Kitchen cabinet hardware is a great example of that. They'll want to go spend on 299 handles or something like that. And I want to be in the 10 to 15, $20 range of some nice poles that look fantastic, that really set off the cabinetry in there. It's a point right when you come into the house. And um, those are interesting areas of needs and wants, and I always talk to the wife on those projects.
Well, that's good. It's good you have a resource there, especially someone that's operating,
Yes.
and haven't had experience with certain vendors and suppliers. I mean, maybe to that point, how is your supplier base expanded? Especially to meet the needs of your clients. There's a lot of people looking to do remodels for a lot of different reasons. They may be in their house at a very competitive interest rate, and um, so with that being said, how have you expanded just the product that you're using, installing, and all of these homes?
Well, we've been fortunate to get some good leads from other companies, and every time I meet with a new designer, I immediately ask her who she likes for her subs, and what she's had great success with, and who she really prefers, and I'll interview those people. So over that, I've gained painters, cabinet companies, stone manufacturers, and that's helped a lot to get that going as well, because I've got a backlog, and sometimes I need to use a couple other subs for the same type of trade. And those designers have been a help with that, because typically when I'm working on the job, I'm on the job. I'm a hands-on contractor, and so I don't have a lot of time that I can sit and research and send that stuff out. I'll ask Kim, my wife, to start making some calls to see if she can get some other things. But the designers have been a good help.
So you mentioned a few times in this episode that that reciprocity, that you have a relationship with designers, that's led to business development and projects and referrals. Outside of the referrals from designers and previous clients, where's your lead generation? Where are those prospects coming from?
Word of mouth has been my entire career up until the last 2 years. And this is when we're starting to take on the social media giant that everybody's using, and we're way behind the curve trying to get that stuff out there and still learning. But a lot of that is good. House is a great development or a great product for us. They give us a lot. You keep with our Instagram, that's been helping. Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I never touched that stuff ever until 2 years ago. Probably when I met you, you probably got me going on some of that stuff. So that has been good, but just a good solid reputation's been helpful too.
Yeah, you can't beat that reputation. I mean, you've been doing it for so long. So how did you get into the business?
Just I was always a worker, man. I was either playing sports or outside doing something, and my dad and grandfather were just 7-day a week guys. We had an old shop that we used to build all our own cabinets. My dad was a phenomenal craftsman, and when he built cabinets, he would actually cut his own lathe tools, so his cabinets were never duplicated. You would never see two of the same product in the same house. So he was master craftsman, and I was a production guy. I wanted to move a little faster, so that's where we differ. But it again, they just following them in their footsteps, and that just kept me going, and I enjoy it. I mean, if we rarely sit around the house and watch TV. Kim and I are always in the office and enjoying our other hobbies and just working on the business and just keeping it going. We enjoy it.
So how have you made that so successful? I know, and Kim's a sweetheart, between you and Kim and, marriage and running the business and all the different aspects, how does that, correspond in just day-to-day living?
It's full day. It's a full day, but it's great. Both boys working for us. That's great. And Kim's daughter, Amanda, she's a salesperson for Bo Beer Plumbing, and she does all like the high-rise stuff, hotel, and so we're actually all in the construction industry, and so it gives us something to talk about and keeps us motivated. We talk shop, talk jobs, and talk clients, and again, it just we don't tire of it. We enjoy it, and we're a big boating family. We love to do that, so we're not winter people, we're summer people. So we'll be out on the water a couple days a week during the summer, and then we'll try to take 3 or 4 vacations out to the river and do all that kind of stuff. We really enjoy being outside.
That's amazing. And so I was just going to ask you, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, boating. Well, my gym is my habit. I have to do that 6 days a week. Then we enjoy being outdoors. The boys and I are still off-road dirt bike riders. We enjoy that quite a bit. And then outside of that, we have a couple of little businesses that keep us busy too, and just stay active.
That's amazing. So best advice you've been given?
Best advice I've been given: talk to everybody. You never know who it is.
It's true. And look, I mean, heck, you're on the podcast. That's how we
Yeah,
met, right? Just
yeah.
coming
I
up and
mean,
talking to me. And
it like I said, this one guy told me a long time ago. It's just a number of games. Talk about everybody, ask what they do, and see if there's any kind of portion of his business you can help him out with.
so what do you have that's upcoming and exciting?
Mm, man, exciting. Like personal wise or job wise?
Personal, job, both?
We have some great leads on some jobs that are going to start. We got March, April, May starts. Those are going to be some really fun projects. That's with KQ and Interiors. That's going to be my first projects with them. They're great. Thank you for that referral, my man.
Yeah, they do great.
Yeah, and then we're looking at. We have a storage facility that we do for RVs and boats and stuff like that, and we're looking to expand on that market too in the coming year. So we've been searching for some land for that and want to get that going as well.
It's incredible. Well, Tim, you've been amazing. I appreciate the friendship, advice you've given to those other contractors and remodelers out here. So thank you for making time today.
You bet, Brad. I really appreciate this, man. You're a good man.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.